Evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday, November 4th meeting of the Town Board, regular meeting, public hearing, and workshop. Please join me while we pledge allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for coming. We're just going to change the order around a little bit. We can't start our public hearing till 7:10 p.m., so that gives us about 10 minutes to have a little workshop discussion. So I might suggest that we go ahead with the police canine unit. So I'd like to invite the police officers to come on up to the table here. Actually, Herb, we don't have a microphone over there, do we?
No.
Can we?
I can bring that over.
Yeah. Welcome, everyone.
Welcome.
Hi. Yeah, let's get one over there.
Well, they might just want to move it around there.
Ken, you can be both on the town board and the media committee.
Okay. That's the next thing I'll do.
Okay, well, good evening, gentlemen, and thank you for coming. I know Bill is a big part of this, so I'm not sure how you would like to go ahead and start the discussion, but I'll kind of turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. I'll start it out. This is a very, in my opinion, important piece of the police work, is the police canine unit. As the chief knows, he was also a canine handler at one time. Certainly no economy is not the greatest, but I've met with the police many times for numerous hours, and we have I believe, a plan here where we can institute a police canine unit and not cost the town hardly any money whatsoever. We're going to get into more issues. I know they've done their homework on it. I've done homework on it, and we'll get into it as we go along. If the chief wants to take over and just...
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good. Officer Kevin Watts to my immediate left and Lieutenant Bob Benson, both to the Town of Hyde Park Police Department. We've done a little bit of homework, and what I hope to do is to give you some brief overview. Okay. Some brief overview of what I perceive to be the costs and benefits of a police canine unit for the Town of Hyde Park Police Department. To go into the costs, and please feel free at any point, what we see as the costs at this point, and I would like to preface what I am going to say as far as costs go, is that the PBA has assured me and given some real concrete examples of their ability to do fundraising within this community by the PBA that I have to tell you I've never had experience with before, and they point to their successes specifically with their fundraising, wherein they were able to purchase a vehicle in the course of a weekend worth of fundraising. Now that, to me, it speaks volumes not only to the relationship between the community and the police department, but this police department's ability to reach out to that community to demonstrate a need. With that being said, we believe the big costs that we've identified for a program, and again, I was a police canine handler in my previous employment. I can't say enough good things about the benefit that a police canine brings to a police department, its ability to apprehend criminals, handler protection, but just as importantly, during the course of regular business, article searches and missing person searches, something that we've had occasion to have to deal with here in the town of Hyde Park, handled very, very expeditiously by use of a police canine. Get into the costs. For a dog, we have been quoted in the area of about $7,000. We believe that is an approximate cost of what we would get for an imported dog, which in our experience is probably the best way to go, an imported German Shepherd. Vehicle, Officer Watts has done some background, and we have been quoted a price for a used police vehicle with the kennel included of about $7,000, and that the broker of that vehicle assures us that it had between 70 and 80,000 miles, which would actually make it one of the lower mile cars in the fleet if we were to purchase it. We've talked to Councilman Petito regarding veterinary bills and maintenance veterinary bills, not injury, but maintenance veterinary bills. His wife works for a veterinarian who was offered to provide that free of charge to the town of Hyde Park. Food, Councilman Truitt has spoken to a vendor here in the town who has offered free or reduced rates on the food. The vehicle and the dog are the big ticket items in our research. However, there's contractual obligations to consider as well. And at one point, we believed the contractual obligations would put a patrolman at an additional expense of about $11,000 a year. In doing the research, that's incorrect. The C line, where we would anticipate assigning an officer with a canine, would entitle him to about $7,200 additional a year. And there's a federal guideline for that kind of money, and that it's called the Garcia Act, and that specifically addresses overtime as applied to police canine, the maintenance of a police canine, the handling of a police canine. Everything else that we've seen, we see really minimal, if any, expense. Equipment, training. As I've talked, the uses of a police canine, apprehension, handler protection, article searches, but especially missing persons, endangered persons, drug searches. I've had experience, and we've had experience here within the town of Hyde Park, where drug seizures have been turned back over to the town. Money involved in drug seizures has been turned back over to the town. Certainly, this would increase our ability to do those drug searches, to anticipate some seizure money coming from that. And one of the things, and we've talked about this at great length, one of the things that I think, having been both a canine handler and on the mounted unit in my previous employment, nothing lets the police reach out to the community better than animals. Horses and dogs, people really like them a great deal. So public relations, from our perspective, our ability to deal with people and to interact with kids is going to be increased wonderfully with this. One of the things we run into, and one of the things we're looking at this point, both the Sheriff's Department and the State Police maintain excellent canine programs. I have nothing bad to say about them. Our only problem is that limited availability. And the fact is, when we call the Sheriff's Office or the State Police, sometimes there's hour delays for those dogs to respond from wherever they are, if they're available at all, and sometimes they are not. So that's a brief overview. Certainly, if the town board wants any more information, I'll certainly put it together in writing. These are, I believe, realistic costs that we've outlined. Is there anything?
No, just obviously we've had conversations with people in the community about this, but in short of getting any support, we didn't want to go out and start fundraising for something that may not be accepted, and the last thing we want to do is ask people for funds and have to return those funds to them.
Yeah.
Myself, when the chief was talking about raising money for a DARE car, I raised $15,000 in 3 days through businesses here in our community. This community is very supportive of the police department. It's very supportive of the children and animals within the town. As far as I see, you can't ever put a number on saving a young child or possibly, an adult who's wandered off from home. And these are just small examples of things that, Sergeant Truitt did in his small career here in the town of Hyde Park. But, we, without short of getting support from the board to reinstate a program that's been abolished, we didn't want to go out and start raising funds without knowing whether or not.
Thank you for that. Yeah, that was the proper approach for sure. So can we just kind of go through the scenario? So if you did purchase a dog, then it's assigned to a handler, and that would be Mr. Watts, Officer
We haven't
Watts.
chosen one. However, Officer Watts has been at the forefront of all the research that we've done thus far and has expressed interest in that canine position. But obviously, that would be an interview process. there's a real suitability factor as far as who could be a police canine and who has the temperament, who has the availability, who has the logistical,
Well, that's kind of where I was going with it. So then so you get this dog, and then it becomes really your responsibility. He goes home
Correct.
back and forth with the handler, and you keep him there. You're it's not exactly your pet, but he's your dog.
Right.
And then, so anytime there was an event where he was needed, the dog was needed, the officer would come with him, and that would be part of like kind of an overtime expense?
Yes.
Yes, okay, all right. So then we talk about maintenance being volunteered. That's kind of a little on the vague side. I don't even know the vet's name. And, so it seemed like there would be a lot of details that you would really have to have hammered out. It's the kind of thing where, it's interesting to explore. So I appreciate that you didn't really go right to the community, because I think there's just a lot of factors that, we are living in a 2% budget and or just slightly over. So cost is, of course, paramount, and it's good to have a complete picture of those costs. You mentioned the veterinary bills might be just for maintenance, but are there often other bills that come up? Or?
Not real often. I had a dogs here for 12 years, and I never really had any major. I think the most we ever spent was about $1,500, and I got a reduced cost for the veterinarian. It wasn't real high. My dogs didn't get injured too often. But if a dog is out and he gets shot or stabbed or whatever, yeah, you have to rush him to the veterinarian. And,
sure.
But if he saves one person's life, I don't see where you can put money. I can't even see it. I'll just give you one quick example. Bob might remember a woman. She's about 75 years old in Kensington. She walked out back into the woods back in St. Andrews. My dog and I got called there. We did a track. It's the middle of winter. We found her back there about a half a mile in. She had no idea where she was, and thanks to the dog, we did find her. And I can't see putting a price on what a dog does. And what we are saying here is this would really be very minimal to the town taxpayer if we do the fundraising and we get the reduced stuff. I offered to donate a $500 kennel that I have at my home for the dog to go to Kevin Watch's house or whoever's going to be picked. I'll donate that. That's something I would do also. And,
Sure,
Can we go over the long-term costs again? I'm not sure I really caught all of it. So basically, the number that I had written down was about $7,200 for the additional time for the officer, right? That's just for overtime? That's not
is that an increase in his salary?
That is in addition to his salary and independent of any time he's called out. And again, I made reference to the Garcia Act. The Garcia Act was a federal lawsuit which stipulates that an officer must be compensated for that time which he spends with that dog in police-related functions, but even in maintenance functions, so grooming and that kind of stuff. And based on a pre-existing contract, the collective bargaining agreement with the PBA, right now it would entitle a 50-year patrolman to $72,7870 per year additional salary, $7,278.70.
And that does not include the overtime?
That's correct.
Okay. I'm just trying to understand that. That's all.
But that is correct.
Okay.
Going along with that, Officer Watts and myself had contacted the executive board of the PBA, and we have come to an agreement with them that is a negotiable thing that the PBA is willing to negotiate. If that's a sticking point of it being compensated at that rate, we are open to negotiating that to be less expense because of the economy and the way things are that you're facing and we're all facing and living within.
Yeah.
So that again, we couldn't put a number to it because we couldn't do that. But speaking with the executive board of the PBA, we spoke that we would negotiate that down to a lesser expense.
If I can just hit on that even harder. The Federal Labor Standards Act is where this all comes from. That's where this is all from. And he has to be compensated at time and a half. I believe it was a half hour per day, whether he works or not, for having a canine. However, you can take also time off. So if he took a half hour off a day from his regular schedule, they work let's say quarter to 7 in the morning till 3:15. He could work 7 to 3, and then that would be, instead of being paid. He would get that half-hour time off to take care of the dog, and that's totally fine under the Federal Labor Standards Act. So you can negotiate that $7,200 down if the PBA is willing to go ahead and do that. And from talking to them, it sounds like they are definitely willing to do that to get something of this importance, to the police department.
Yeah, it sounds wonderful, and I understand that fundraising is a wonderful idea for getting the initial costs taken care of. It's just that I think we'd really have to have a handle on what would be required in the budget for years to come to keep this going, right? I mean, that would be the question.
Realistically, I think mostly the cost of the dog and the car, the initial cost is what.
Can we just clarify the car for a second? So the handler's given his own vehicle that he always uses, and then that vehicle goes home back and forth with the handler as well. So okay.
Right.
And actually, just kind of like to visit the surrounding communities that you mentioned that the sheriff and the state troopers have dogs, and is that local or right at the sheriff, of course, Dutchess County Sheriff, but how about the state troopers? Is that at the Rhinebeck or?
Well, for instance, we were talking about it, one of the instances we were referring to, the closest police canine came out of Chatham, so that was about an hour away. And again, nobody's subject to mandatory recall, certainly within those agencies. So if there is a dog on duty, then you're in good shape. Even within the county, it could be from Millerton or Armenia and come cross county. But there is sometimes a rather prolonged delay to wait for other agencies.
Do any other town or
And sometimes it's not.
Do any other towns or cities have a dog?
The city of Poughkeepsie, the town of Poughkeepsie, and I believe the town of East Fishkill, the village of Wappingers. Is there any?
And has there ever been attempts to share that service? I wonder, would you ever be able to share a dog with another community? I mean, you mentioned the police using the troopers and the sheriff, but do you ever try to reach out to the other towns?
To share a dog, no, I could not see that working as.
Well, not exactly sharing the dog, but sharing the service.
Well,
do you ever in the instance where you would call the sheriff and one's not available, then do you go down a list and reach out to the city or town of Poughkeepsie, or?
You absolutely could do that depending on the circumstances, but then you're basically at their mercy whether they have a dog available, whether they would recall a dog depending on the
And then
circumstances.
at that point, they're going to ask who's funding,
Right.
who's going to.
Right, you'd have to have an intermunicipal agreement kind of set up in advance to address that. Ken, you had some questions?
Yeah. First of all, I think it's a wonderful idea. I love the idea of a canine unit. The question I have, say it's Officer Watts that, you become the canine officer and you choose to go work for another department. Does the dog go with you? Or is that dog property of Hyde Park? How does all that work?
Contractually, the dog would remain property of the town of Hyde Park. Practically speaking, in that instance, I've had occasion to see dogs who have been transferred from one handler to another, and it's been my experience that does not work. And so there is a provision within the collective bargaining agreement to sell the dog to that handler when he leaves service or the dog is retired from service.
You guys have any other questions?
Has there been any occasion this year where you've utilized dogs from other municipalities?
Yeah.
Okay.
In fact,
We used
numerous.
2 dogs for the manhunt up in Statsburg. We used one of the sheriff's dogs who was on the scene rather quickly, but his dog got tired. They have a certain time span where they're working. Billy could probably answer that better than I can. And then we were hot on the track, and he had to take his dog off the track, and we had to wait for over an hour for a dog to respond from south end of town, Fishkill, down to Wappingers. A state police dog arrived at that time, but it took over an hour for him to get there. And at that time, we kind of didn't know exactly where the subject was, and actually was hiding out in someone's house. Had we had another dog that was close by that was able to jump on the track while it was hot, we may have been able to stop that person from getting in.
And similarly, have there been incidences where we needed a dog, but we were unable to get a dog?
There's been many instances, yes, especially on the midnight shift, on the overnight shift, when obviously, again, you talk about budget constraints for us, for our township, but every other department has them as well. And then it comes into a situation where is a handler, has he already worked that day? Because if they've already worked that day and the dog was used that day, they need a certain amount of time off before they're able to come back out again. There's been many times that has been the case.
For a police department that only might have one dog, do you tend to make the police officer shifts a little bit more flexible to avoid overtime instead of, in other words, just plugging them in on the C line or whatever you call it?
In speaking, again, I do not want to speak for the executive board of the PBA, but in speaking with them, my understanding and my impression coming away is that they understand the importance of flexibility in scheduling and as much straight time scheduling as is possible in this kind of an assignment. So I believe, yes, that's absolutely a consideration, and I think everybody understands the importance of that.
And we already have all the setup for a car since we already had a canine previously, correct? So we don't have all that expense.
We have a kennel, we have the kennel, the hot.
And in fact,
Pocket.
well,
Well,
not only do we have a kennel, but in the chance that it doesn't fit, and we were talking about this, modifications even in the Crown Victoria, which looks basically the same today as it did in 2005, even interior modifications sometimes make that kennel not fit as well. We've had offers of free modifications to the kennel. We do have. So there are people reaching out to us already who have heard about our idea.
And as far as the fundraising for the K9, I did it when I first got Otis. Originally, the PBA paid for Otis. I think back then we paid $4,700 or $4,200 for him. But for all the initial starting gear and everything, I did a fundraiser, and in a couple weeks, I had thousands of dollars, sent to me. I had people send me $500 checks, $1,000 checks. We bought all our equipment and all kinds of stuff, for the canine dog. So I know the community is very big on canine in this community. They loved it, actually. Otis is probably the most popular cop we ever had. No doubt about it in my mind. I'd just like to, I would love the board to be able to say, okay, we really like this idea, and start your fundraiser. If you can raise the money, I would like to do that.
I can't say that tonight. What I was going to say is that, like a little time to do some research, reach out to the other communities that have them, so you kind of get a big picture cost projection. And, we're have a meeting in 2 weeks, and we can, do that. You've waited a long time, so I don't think a couple weeks should make a whole lot of difference, but definitely thankful for you taking the initiative and, taking a problem-solving approach, looking outside to see what other things we can do to increase our effectiveness is something very valuable. So I don't know if anyone else has other
Just
questions.
wondering, we didn't have, this has been really informative, and I appreciate you guys coming. I don't think we had anything in writing in advance of the meeting, so I'm just wondering if maybe you could send us an email or something.
Absolutely.
I mean, the biggest question to me is just what are the long-term expenses that we can expect on an annual basis? So, that would be what we
And
can
again, I've tried to present them as realistically as I believe I can. But keep in mind, long-term expenses are just like
Right, sure.
police overtime, subject to
Unpredictable.
what goes on around us oftentimes.
Okay.
And I guess also whether there might be any potential revenue. I mean, if other communities needed to use our service, would we be able to charge them? I mean, is there any other exchange of money that should be considered?
At this point, I don't see that, and that would be obviously an intermunicipal agreement, which, as Councilman Truitt indicated, a lot of times for these kind of things does not work as well, and there's issues of jurisdiction and things like that. But one thing that I do have experience with, and we've seen even here in the town of Hyde Park, is with seizures and civil forfeitures in court. Oftentimes, although they're not great, we're not talking Miami type amounts of money. We are talking about money, and we're talking about sometimes thousands of dollars that are seized civilly or as part of a plea agreement. If we're more effective in making those seizures to begin with, I think we'll be more effective to see those monies coming in.
So is that the way it works? If you actually make the arrest, then you keep the loot? Is that it?
It's a little more complicated.
I'm breaking it down like this.
I'm sorry.
And the district attorney,
you have to go
offense
through the
intended,
DA.
the district attorney oftentimes has his hand out as well. But yes.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, and we'll be, contemplating and doing a little more research. Looking forward to your email, kind of laying out the steps, and get back to you.
Thank
Sure sounds worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. So with that, we're going to be starting our public hearing. Can I have a motion to open that?
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. And clerk, could you please go ahead and read the notice of public hearing?
Notice is hereby given that the Town Board of the Town of Hyde Park will conduct a public hearing on the 4th day of November, 2013, at 7:10 p.m. at Town Hall, Town of Hyde Park, 4383 Albany Post Road, Hyde Park, New York, for the purpose of holding a public hearing on the preliminary budget of said town for the fiscal year beginning January 1st, 2014. A copy of said preliminary budget is available at the office of the Town Clerk of the Town of Hyde Park, 4383 Albany Post Road, Hyde Park, New York, during the hours of 8:30 a.m. to 4 o'clock p.m., Monday through Friday, where it may be inspected by any interested person. The proposed salaries for the calendar year 2014 are as follows. Supervisor, $24,500. Councilperson, $7,500. Town clerk, $44,000. Receiver of taxes, $31,827. Town justice, $31,000. Superintendent of highways, $70,000. By order of the Town Board of the Town of Hyde Park, dated October 22nd, 2013, Hyde Park, New York. Donna McGrogan, Town Clerk.
Thank you very much, Clerk. So I'd like to go ahead and invite the public to come on up and make their comments on any item related to our town budget, the 2014 budget. Oh, okay, well, guess that's, no one has anything to say on that topic, so may I have a motion to go ahead and close the...
Make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so moving on, what I would suggest we do is condense our public comment on resolutions.
We have a workshop on the budget?
Oh, we do, actually.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, you're right. TC, you're on.
Since we had the last work session, there's been some additional information we received on the health insurance, medical insurance. The plans are not proposing drastic increases in the last several years. We're looking possibly 4 to 5% increase in medical insurance. In the past, that's been 10 to 15, so that's good news, which will fit nicely in what we have as a preliminary budget. In some instances, we used to have to throw some additional monies in there, so apparently the appropriations we have right now in the preliminary budget are good. We are negotiating possibly new proposals for workers' compensation insurance, because the carrier you have right now has informed us of possibly a 20 to 25% increase based on your experience rating with injuries and claims, basically in the police department. Your experience rating is about 18%, which is high. So we are facing a possible pretty good size increase of maybe $40,000 to $50,000 in workers' compensation insurance. Sandy and I are dealing with different carriers. We have a proposal from the county to join their reciprocal. And we're getting a proposal from Hartford, an independent carrier, the State Insurance Fund, and probably the New York State Workers' Compensation Alliance. So you might see a resolution on the November 18th town board meeting to either renew with permit, which I doubt, we're still waiting for their final proposal, or go to a different carrier, okay?
How's the proposal from the county looking?
The cost is very good. It's actually lower than your current. But I have some questions about the financial condition of the county's workers' compensation insurance fund. There is some questions about it. I can't get a good information on their financial condition of what happens is that's a self-insurance fund, and they should have a financial statement that I want to take a look at and see what kind of liabilities are sitting in reserves, et cetera. There is some question on that and what kind of liability any government that joins that group has, and maybe can you get out of it? Is there a penalty for leaving the group after you join it. So
Yeah, because we had heard from another town that they joined because it seemed like a good price, and then the very next year it went up dramatically.
Correct.
So it's just something to
right.
be
So
aware
we're
of.
trying to clarify that we're dealing with the county representative on that. We're trying to clear up all the points. We looked at an actuarial statement they gave us, which shows some high liability sitting there on outstanding claims. So workers' compensation is pretty involved, and I have a separate company taking a look at their proposal. So it looks good, because of the actual premiums that we will pay, but we want to get that, make sure it's clarified. So what else has come in? The sales tax, the agreement that you have with the county is kind of stabilizing that, so no longer will you receive sales tax, but you'll no longer have that election cost. And the mortgage tax, I didn't get the October figure. I'm kind of interested to see how the October figure on the revenue side, to see how that did. So that's basically the new developments. You're still negotiating 2 union contracts. We're going to reserve money in certain accounts to take care of those final agreements when they're resolved. So if you have any additional comments, we will probably, the night of the 18th, I might have some switches. Won't change the bottom line. The tax rate increase is 2%. The tax levy increase, as there was somebody squawking about, the tax levy increase is totally different than the tax rate increase. The rate increase is basically 2%, which is about $16 per home, or a little bit more than that on the average. Okay, so probably the night of the 18th, if we have, I'll have some recommended changes, but it won't change the budget drastically. The bottom line will be the same, and whatever else the town board decides to do, then we'll adopt the budget on the 18th.
Sounds like a plan. You guys all okay with that?
Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much,
Thank you,
TC.
Thanks, TC.
I'd just like to note that we did receive 2 comment letters, which will be made part of the record and considered by the town board before the final budget is adopted. One of them was from Donna. Would you like to discuss it, or are you happy enough with just your letter?
Yeah, well, mine was basically about the reinstating, the second deputy town clerk was taken from the town clerk's office to help in zoning. Our zoning secretary had retired at the end of 2012.
Taken for 2 days a week.
For 2 days a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that 2 days a week is just presenting a tremendous burden on our office, as we have to complete her work after work, which is what I'm doing personally, because our first deputy town clerk would have to be compensated. So it's just a tremendous burden, and we're asking if we could get that reinstated.
So I know you sent a letter on that, so
Right.
I did want to give
In
you
a
the
nutshell, that's-
the
yeah.
opportunity. And again, we're constantly trying to merge the departments and merge positions to cut back on the expenses. Of course, the full-time positions come with extensive obligations for retirement, FICA, health insurance. So this is a technique that we have been using, not filling some vacant positions. Donna has a full-time person and then another aide or deputy who's there 3 days and then 2 days in the zoning. And so that's just, something that we're continuing to massage. We did do a little research on it, and, it seemed that there are many other towns that have make do with 1 or 2. So, and then looking to the future, something that we have been talking about with the tax receiver is putting the payment of taxes online. And I think that's really a great way for our community to go. Warren's doing some research on the contract, and we're looking at implementing that. And so one of the things that we would like to do with that is also make the licensing. A lot of that can be done online. There's a module that we could buy, which I think will further reduce labor costs. And, we're just really trying to follow the model of the county, doing whatever we can to streamline labor costs, because that's the majority of our budget. So, but we don't want Donna to be, overly burdened. So,
As far as the payment online goes, and that is an option, and we can do that. The only problem is with dog licensing is we're state mandated to collect the rabies, and the person would still have to come in to the office and, provide proof of rabies. So
Okay,
even though
that's
they
good to
can
know.
make their payments, it's...
And how about the hunting licenses and that type of
Hunting
thing?
licenses have been available online for, I want to say 5 years now.
Mhm,
We still
okay.
have tremendous amount. I think we did 1,200 this year.
And they're generally, they come in to do that, or they do that online?
Yes, well, I couldn't tell you who does it online because licensing is available to any hunter who's met the qualifications. So they're not necessarily the same people every year.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions?
Yeah, I would just like to know what type of work, you said that you're coming in to do extra work. I'm just wondering what type
Well,
of work.
basically, when we're open to the public, that's where you are. You're answering the telephone, answering the window, you're doing the public work, waiting on the people. And then there's all the work, like tomorrow after this meeting, anything that needs to be done paperwork-wise, which does not involve the public, that sort of thing that's put aside. I can't even tell you how many hundreds of hours we spend on foils. And foils are non-revenue generating from our office, but it's tremendous amount of research, things that you try to do between people coming to the window. But as you well know, anytime anybody interrupts you in your thought process, it's almost like starting over again when you come back. So returning phone calls, we're in a situation right now where, and last week as well as we're doing vacations, you have one deputy or myself in the office alone all day. So if there's any lunch to be had or telephone calls, everything has to be done, returned after work. You just can't do it. Marriages or deaths, anything that takes 20, 30 minutes, if you potentially have a marriage and a death, let's just say, you have somebody who might have a dog that's waiting 45 minutes to be with you. It just can't, you can't. It's very
You're
difficult.
not a person 2 days a week now,
Right, a
Full-time
full-time
person.
person, 2 full days.
2 full days out of the week. Okay.
But she has another one that is there. So she used to have 2 deputies full-time, so now she has one
I think
and
it was
1 2/3.
1998, I think, is when they did 3 full-time people in that office. And
Okay.
like I said in my letter, since 98, the town and everything has grown. And the other town clerks that you mentioned in towns that maybe are making it work, they're closing to the public certain days or certain hours. We're trying not to do that. When we are alone, I will say we're trying to close for an hour just to have lunch and return
Yeah.
a few phone calls. But
That
we're
makes sense.
trying to stay open to the public, which is
Appreciate that.
what I really try to do.
Okay.
Les, thank you.
Okay.
I'm sorry. So you need another full-time person, or do you
I
need
just need
an
Linda
ex?
back. I need my second deputy back 2 days. We can make that happen.
But
I
that-
do
that would-
remain
You'd have
here.
to fund the ZBA position.
Right.
Correct.
Right.
Which is, I believe, we came up with approximately $10,000.
When I talked
without
about,
benefits.
about 14,000, it would be,
14?
yeah, with the benefits.
For the 2 days?
Yeah. Yep.
I'm sorry, how much?
Oh,
About
with
14,
benefits.
with the
With
with the,
benefits.
yeah,
With the
because that, we
town
have to,
account.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so we have not finalized the budget, so we'll be continuing to massage that.
Thank you.
Okay, yep, thank you, Donna. Okay, so with that, I'd like to go ahead and open the public comment up on resolutions and on any matter related to town business. It just seems easier just to go ahead and condense those, so come on up. Anyone who's, please state your name and your address and limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Talking about Donna.
My name is James Walensky. I live at 32 Green Tree Drive North, which looks like a war zone. I think we all know about that. Come on up and see. As far as barking animals, if we can look into Hopewell Junction's laws and write a few of our own, because I love animals, and I think this police dog would be a great investment. But I don't need to be able to go in my backyard and have my neighbor's dog barking at me nonstop until I yell, "Shut him up." They're just so inconsiderate, they really don't care. They don't have enough room, they don't spend any time with their animals outside. East Fishkill's got a 5-minute barking law. If the dog's barking for more than 5 minutes, you get a fine. You know what? If it's a police dog hunting after something, I think it'd be great. But if it's a neighbor's dog just annoying me, my wife doesn't even want to use the backyard because she's afraid. That dog's been around in our yard a couple times. And when we were told to call the animal control at the SPCA, we call them, and they're closed. They tell you to go, you call your police. And the police say, we don't have a way of handling them. Now maybe we have a handler. But still, I have neighbors who just don't care. It's only one big dog that don't belong in a little yard. They never walk it, they just leave it in the house or let it walk around outside in about a postage stamp of a backyard. And I understand you guys have a tight rope to pull because you have a very small budget. Do the best you can. That's all I ask. And when we have these quads on the road and we catch them, take them away and sell them at an auction. That'll give you extra money to fund. And you know what? Maybe the parents then won't become the bully manderers. Because my son is 15. I'm teaching him not to be a bully. But I got the neighbors, because they can't ride up and down the roads, they come by and harass people. They'll go over to the neighbor's yard, roll around and roll around. You know, we didn't have much rain a couple of weeks ago. Nothing but dirt dust flying in the air. Then we have eggs flying at my house a week before Halloween and a potato cannon. Are you guys aware of a potato cannon? I'm sure someone can tell you if you don't. I've got cracked siding on my house. That's all I want to do is go out and spend another $1,000 on a square to redo the whole siding because you can't match white vinyl. But we're working it together. Maybe we can tie them all up and catch them. I'll eat this vinyl, okay? And I don't want to scare anybody, but I got to stand my own ground. I call up the police department, the young lady says, go inside. This guy's out here threatening me, and I'm going to go inside my house? I'm not going to run away from a fight. I'm going to stand my ground. Wouldn't you? Please, help me. The chief is trying to, and he already told me I've been a bad boy, and I want to apologize to all of you. Okay, you guys have a great evening. Do the best you can. And as far as the police department, they need more help for Jennifer. They need another person to answer the phones. They need another person to help dispatch. Because you know what? There's no such thing as a human octopus yet. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Do the best you can. Good luck on the elections.
Thank you, Mr. Walensky. Okay, would anyone else like to come on up and comment on any of the resolutions or any matter related to town business? Okay, quiet night tonight. So I guess moving on, then I'd like a motion to close the public comment.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Emily, you want to start with the resolution number 1?
Resolution 1141 of 2013, resolution appointing Brandon Friedley an unpaid internship in the supervisor's office.
Do we have a second?
Second?
And this is working out well. I have a couple of unpaid interns who are helping with TAD and they did the income survey for our CDBG application, so it's working out good.
Great.
Yeah, Brandon is doing some MS4 stuff, and
Well, good.
it's good. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 42 of 2013, resolution approving budget revisions to the town of Hyde Park for the period of October 2013. Budget revisions number 2013-010.
And do we have a second?
Second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution 11-4-3 of 2013, resolution recognizing the resignation of Justin Filicello as police assistant for the town of Hyde Park.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Justin, for your service. Wish you luck.
Resolution 11-4-4 of 2013, resolution authorizing the use of the Recreation Trust funds for certain improvements at the Greenfields Park and Doty Park, and updating Resolution 1021-1 of 2013.
This might look a little familiar because we did it last time,
With the wheelchair,
but
right.
it was just a little revision in the total costs.
Okay.
And this money comes out of the rec trust.
Yeah.
So do we have a second? And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1145 of 2013, authorizing the release of road opening bond.
And
I'll second.
second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1146 of 2013, resolution authorizing Deputy Town Clerk Patricia Cody Cullen to attend DEC conservation training on November 12, 2013.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 11-4-7 of 2013, authorizing the town clerk to execute a licensing agreement with New York State Department of Environmental Conservation.
And we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 11-4-8 of 2013, authorizing re-levy of unpaid special district charges and fees for 2013.
And we have a second? And all in favor?
Aye.
Resolution 1149 of 2013, resolution approving amendment to intermunicipal agreement regarding Vanderburg Cove sewer districts between the town of Rhinebeck and the town of Hyde Park.
Second.
And Warren, do you have any information on that?
This is requested by our finance office and by Rhinebeck needed a tweak in the intermunicipal agreement because it's a joint district between the two municipalities. It relates to the way the sewer rents are charged and collected. And so we enacted it.
Okay.
Or we are going to enact it at their request.
Okay, so do we have a second?
I second it.
And, oh, sorry, and all in favor?
Aye.
And Hyde Park, Rhinebeck is going to do it at their next meeting.
Okay, good.
Yeah, let's keep Rhinebeck running that
Yeah, we're
district.
moving.
So we don't have to.
Absolutely.
Resolution 11-4-10 of 2013, resolution authorizing attorney to the town to settle two tax cert proceedings.
I'll just give you a little explanation. It's tax proceedings that were filed in consecutive years for the same property but different owners, and they were seeking a reduction in their assessment based upon a recent sale, which we determined to be best evidence of fair market value of the property. So we actually settled it for more beneficial to the town than the actual sale price, which we were pleased with. And there's a waiver there's no refund. The town does not pay any refund of taxes on this.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. With that, I'm going to ask for a motion to enter executive session. We have a couple of contracts to discuss.
I'll make the motion.
And a second?
Second.
And all in favor? Aye. And we'll be right back.
Sure.